Alright, as we get ready to paint our 4-season Lazy Susan, which is going to have our Vintner Grapes Lazy Susan pattern on it, what we find, this is a dry brushing technique, which is not the same as the dry rubbing technique that a lot of you are familiar with. This is dry brushing. This isn't take the brush, rub off all the paint, rub on. This is actually loading the paintbrush very nice and juicy, and then just tickling a little bit of highlights on and building highlights. This technique requires you to be able to skim, just tickle on the paint. And so what that means is we're going to need to have a little bit of a texture. You can hear the rubbing right there. We're going to roll on our texture, which is going to allow little teeny bumps to form evenly so that we can get that little bit of drag and that little bit of dry look. The dry brushing that we're doing here is dry brushing that describes the look of the stroke, which is like it looks like it was applied dry. Now, ironically, these surfaces are made out of a hard board, and so they are a little bit smooth. So I'm going to take my sanding disc. This is a sanding pad that is sandwiched between a foam pad, and I'm going to rough up my surface. Instead of sanding it smoother, I'm going to sand it rough. And that way, my paint will stick to the surface. Okay, and as soon as yeah, that's nice. Okay, as soon as I've got that, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my foam roller, okay, and this will be, I've got my gray palette paper, in gray so that we can tell our values and stuff it's the same wax paper that you're used to in white. We've got a new set of foam rollers. These are 4-inch, and we also have foam rollers and heads that are for the 2-inch size. This size is my favorite size. The little size I used last weekend. It was very nice for blending and slip slapping and stuff. I was impressed with that. This comes in 2 sets. One is just like your regular white kind of or black foam, and then this one's got a flocking on it, which makes for a smoother finish. And this is fantastic for varnishing and things like that. So this is a really unique set that you're not going to find in any of your other like Home Depots and things like that. I usually stand up when I'm going to roll because I want some control and a little bit of leverage. And then you want to be real careful because when you roll paint, it tends to spit. So, and if you need to protect your table, you can tuck a piece of paper and stuff between your surface and the other. And then if you don't want it to spit, roll away from you, but just be careful you're not going to spit on anything beside you. I've got my brand new fresh paper. I like to keep it that way for at least 10 minutes. Okay, so I'll just do this on my edges, and then I'll go do the middle. You want to be careful if you put this on top of something, then the underneath side of your surface can get dirty, and that means that you will be making a big mess on places you don't realize you're going to be making a mess on. So it's super important to be aware of what you're doing to the bottom side of your project. One more. Rollers are my favorite way to varnish, my favorite way to base coat. They're quick, they're easy, they're fast. The neat thing about rollers is, the bad thing about rollers is they take cleanup. I hate cleaning a roller. And so I tend not to, but I'll show you a trick that I know. Okay, there we go. Get that nice and even. I'm going to allow it to dry, and then I'm going to do another coat with it wet. But my trick that I know, these were from class when I went down to teach over a week ago, and these were loosely wrapped in a piece of plastic bag that I had laying around, and they're still good enough to use. And so normally though, you would take the head off, and then you would wrap that head tightly in plastic, because if air can't get into that roller head, then it won't ruin it. And then otherwise you can put it under water and then just rinse it out really well. And then you can pop a new head on there. I almost always will have a black roller head available, and then a varnish roller head. And then I just take them off, put them on, and do my stuff, and then go back. So, and there's the cute little nugget for the 2-inch one. Alright, this is the Vintner Lazy Susan, and this I just had to do one of the, I wanted an excuse to record, to make a video of this project because I just love the project and it is one of our best sellers. And I didn't have video technology at that time. One thing that we have to deal with, which makes it another prime candidate for making a video, is we have to deal with the fact that these colors are Delta, and I no longer paint in Delta colors because so many of them were discontinued. So we are going to go through the process of dealing with conversions and stuff. The packet is going to be available this week only. You need to watch the video here that we're talking about, and you can look for the link. Joe's going to handle that, so it'll be someplace in this first week's video. Okay, one of the things that we need to talk about is that we are only going to be highlighting. I told you that a little bit earlier, and that means that as we're going through, we're going to need to make sure that our colors go. We're going to use that value scale. Okay, we've got our value scale. This is a mixing project. For those of you that don't like mixing projects, this isn't going to work for you. Dry brushing intrinsically is a mixing project, and the reason why is because you're going dirty brush into dirty brush into dirty brush to make these highlights kind of creep up on each other. If I had, you know, that very brightest blue, that's our highlight right there, on top of this black, it would be so glaring, it would be just terrible. So we want to make sure that we sneak up on it instead of going strong. So you're going to want definitely to have your grayscale out, and you need Patty's favorite dry brush, which is, you just need one size. I would say either a 6 or an 8. Okay, well, we're getting ready for our prep here. I will show you. This pattern is done in pieces. We have not got a whole heck of a lot of technology in our little town, and so we have to deal with things how we can deal with things. So, but let me show you a good trick that I know. If you take your piece that you're going to trace on, anytime you have a pattern in pieces, trace the outside of it. Okay, and we sort of have some of that traced. Okay. Then what you're going to do is you're going to lay your pattern pieces underneath the tracing paper. And this is very much a repetitious type of a pattern. Okay. You want enough room for these words to set on here. Move our bottles of stuff here. And get those words and everything. Get our little wooden block is in the middle there. Okay, words evenly spaced. Okay, number one thing with this kind of stuff is just to kind of get yourself started and look for evenness. Alright, so I'm going to say those two are about right. And then I'll trace my words first. Okay, I'll trace this part of my pattern, and then when I get over here, I'm going to rock this over just a little bit. So hang on. I think there's sometimes a lot lost in normal videos and programs and things like that in just this kind of stuff where you need your prep steps. You know, we don't want just necessarily to know how to, how to paint. We also need to know how to lay things out. Okay, so I'm going to say that that's good. And then I'm going to trace the stuff and I'll come right back to you. Okay, now as soon as I get those items in front traced, I'm going to jockey this so that my Zinfandel word is where it belongs. And it should be kind of centered in between the two of these. Okay, and kind of like that. I think I can like that. And then we just kind of keep this little vine line kind of and match it all up with what we've got going down here with the Zinfandel. So you don't have to necessarily have it all traced large. You can just match this up to whatever pattern you're trying to make. And that was a bad line. Okay. Okay, so that's dry. Now I want to we have to do two things. We have to re-wet with black and then go into our purple with our wet roller. So, re-wetting does not need to be a base coat. It just needs to be a kind of coat. And we don't really need it near our edge because our edge is going to be some purpley color. So we just want to wet that, because if you slip slap into paint that is, let's see, if you slip slap into paint that isn't wet, then your color that you're slip slapping into the other color will like sit on top, and it'll be more like a base coat. So you got to have something wet with the other color, or you have to have water or a medium or something like that. Okay, then we're going to go into our palette and we'll go into our purple. You could use a brush to do this. It doesn't matter whichever way you want. You're going to go every old which way. You load your brush. As you see, it's disappearing. The black is going to eat this color up, so don't overblend. You could always just roll over it with black if you hated it, right? So I've got black in my roller and I've got black on my piece, so we want to be really super careful not to overblend. You can kind of see that little bit glowing kind of effect. Now if I wanted to get a little bit busier, I could take, this is the extra large size of the Patty's Fair dry brush after I have trashed the snot out of it, but these brushes just last and last. I could go into just a little bit of that color, just if I wanted it to have a little bit of that brushed on slip slap up here in the top, and I could kind of lay that down, dance on that just a little bit. Okay, just a slippy slappy, slippy slappy. And leave it alone. Get on out of there. Okay. Okay, a really quick and easy way to make a border when you need to trace and have it exact, because we really do want a replica of our shape of our border. Really easy way is to measure, and you can measure this off of the pattern, how much you want with your compass. This is our this is our half pipe compass. And you just put that little edge right over the edge of that and trace away. Okay, go all the way around. Okay, and this is wonderful because this, you open it with your fingers like that, the lead replaces, and the point and the lead are both protected inside the cap. And your extra leads are stored right there on board in the cap right there. So you never have to hunt for compass leads, which is awful. Okay, so now that you've got that on there, what we're going to do is we're going to mix our color for our background, which is going to be Dusty Plum. Okay, so I lied. We're going to base that border with Eggplant, and that is a mix of dioxazine and red violet. So we'll tint that with our red violet. And remember, we want to go, we're using our eye to match colors. Just we want to red that up just a little bit. It's a palette knife to mix, don't brush mix, although brush mixing will make it nice and uneven. We can use our stretchy tape if you would like to make our edge be a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful trace line. Go here right on the edge, and we will just go ahead and tape along that border. And you pull it as you apply it. Okay, and then you'll use your brush, pinch that all down. Just put that right on in there. And it is such a relaxing way to paint because you don't have to worry about making a mess and mucking things up. Now this color will also sink into the background just a little bit. That's okay because we do want it a little bit sheer. Okay, then you're going to use some Dusty Plum, which is the color I thought we were making. And that is, our Dusty Plum has a little bit of slate gray in it and a little bit of oops, buttermilk. This one I think I am going to go ahead and I'm going to brush mix this. Okay, so I'm going to mix a little bit of this, and notice that I have dirty brush from my other color. I want this to end up being a family color, so if I taint it with just a little bit of the color that I was in earlier, then always your paints will go together. Okay, and we're going to dry brush this, so we're just going to do some scratch, scratch, scratch. If it's too bright, then you know what to do. You stop and you re-mix your colors. So we'll dry brush that on all these edges. Okay, make sure it's bright enough for you. If it's not, you can redo. And then we will do our band, which is painted with candy bar. Our candy bar conversion is black plum and brandywine. Okay, with a round or a liner or something you like, you'll go ahead and you'll get just a little bit of your paint. Let me see if I can't get you in here on the screen. And we will and just run that right next to our edge. You can do it tape on or tape off. But I find if the tape is on, then I'm paying a lot more attention. Okay, and then you can immediately dry brush. I'm going to highlight with some golden brown. Our golden brown mix. With these mixes, what you'll do, our golden brown has 3. What you'll normally do is you'll put a touch of one color. It says there's a number in front of it, so like 5 traditional raw sienna, 2 marigold, and 1 burnt orange. Okay, so you can go with that, or you can just kind of guesstimate. So as I'm getting out my paints and I'm mixing my colors, I'm realizing this is going to be a very tedious way to do this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch, and for next week's episode, I'm going to show you a way to manage these colors so that you don't have to do this anymore, and that you'll be all ready to paint with one whole palette of colors, and it'll be just much more seamless. So until next week, go ahead and get your basing done, your background. You can trace the whole pattern. You'll just trace that on once mine is not dry yet, so I can't do that. You can base your whole background and do your basing on your edge if you'd like to, and then we'll be ready to get right into the meat of this next week. Okay, so where we left off last week was we were getting ready to do our border, and we were getting ready to do, we were mixing our paints, and then because I'm going to do, you know, this border and then the accent color to go on top of it, and then the other accent color, but then we use it later on, it starts becoming crazy to use a flat palette like this. So where it makes a lot more sense is to bring out our airtight peel-off palette, which this is what happens when you leave your paint on there. If you get little dried things, if you soak it in warm water or something like that, those will come off easily. But when you have this big, hardened, crusty stuff, this will actually just almost release itself when you are working. So what I am going to do is I'm going to use a 2 combination. I could use my palette, but I want to just throw it away. I don't want to peel off, I don't want to dry, and I don't want to wait. So I'm going to mix my colors onto here, and then I'm going to store them into these little bins right here as I go, and then this is going to last me for the whole entire project, and I don't have to keep mixing and mixing, which I like much better. Okay, so then we take our conversion. Now you could use, for the peel-off palette while you're working, say you've got your paints laid out here and you don't want to have to throw them away as you're going. This is an excellent choice. This one does not have a lid. This has an airtight gasket, so when I put this on top of here and it locks and it doesn't warp like those other wet palettes do, if I put this lid on here, my paints are going to stay fresh. This one, they'll stay fresh out here as long as I keep them fresh, but they're not going to stay fresh for day after day after day. So this is a great working palette. This is a fantastic storing palette. Okay, so I'm going to mix my colors. I'm going to let you go through it, but the guide for this is, well, let's talk about how you mix a color first, and then I'm going to go and just put my colors out. You could label these if you want to. I personally think I'm not gonna. So we've got the conversion for marigold, or for antique gold is marigold. And when you're going to do a whole bunch of mixing like this, get your little painter's thumb because it just hooks over the bottle. This dried on crusty stuff right here is what actually makes the bottle lid hard to come off. And I don't know about you, but I get calluses and I've even made my thumb bleed. So this just uses leverage, and it'll even break those plastic seals off. Okay, so this has a number before it. It says 2, and then it says 1 in front of the next color. So we're going to mix 2 of this color, 1 of the other color. So we'll pretend like these are like chocolate chip sizes, even chocolate chip sizes. And traditional raw sienna. Oops, and I forgot my bottle opener. Okay, and 1 of these. Is that right? That's about right. Okay, when you're mixing colors, you need to use a flexible palette knife. Believe it or not, this is a very, very important tool. Let me grab another one out. These are both 2 kinds of palette knives. The important thing about both of them is they have an offset handle. Okay. What's bad about this one is how large the mixing area is on this. This one is very thin and will actually fit on your palette. If you have colors here, colors here, colors here, you want something that will fit onto your palette. Okay, so I prefer one that fits right in there. And you want it flexible because the way that you mix paints is actually you kind of bounce them up and down on your palette knife. Okay, so you just bounce, bounce, get them all on there. And now I'm thinking, okay, is this looking like an antique gold? Okay, I think so. Now what I could do is if I thought I was going to need a different color, I could mix 2 piles of this and have 2 colors of antique gold. Okay, so I'm going to then transfer this, scoop it up, scrape on my little edge there, over into my wet palette. Now when you're getting ready to close this puppy up, you got to go pick up the grandkids or got to go to work. Damn, we don't want to work. Anyway, when you're getting ready to do that, what I would do is I would take my little mini mister and I would give everybody a little drink all the way around, and then you're going to seal those paints up. Make sure it all lines up, and your palette's good to go. Okay, and you do not want to obviously tip this because if you tip it, your paints will tip out. Anyway, so once you get that all mixed up, you could even, if you wanted to, you could take and make, you know, your little color chip chart there on the side of your instructions. That way, if you're ever getting ready to paint this again, you'll have a little note of what kind of color you're going for. Okay, so do all of the colors that way. Now what you're going to want to do is when you're using these colors together, if you have, say this green is being used with, say, this green, you're going to want to maybe make sure that those 2 colors are getting along together. And every now and again, if you have a color that's not getting along with the other color, then what you can do to make them get along, be friends, is you could take a little bit of that color. Never ever put your dirty palette knife into your puddle of paint. And then you could take some of this color, and I could sneak a little bit of those 2 in there together. And now I'm going to have a color that gets along with that perfectly because they're family members. I've mixed them together so they are relatives now, if that makes sense. So as you're getting ready to use mixed colors, that's something that you'll want to watch for. Okay. I'll just keep sneaking up. Now this is turning a little bit more towards the blue side, and this other green that I'm using is a little bit more to the blue side. Now what I could do is take out my cheater book. I have, and you could do this with your friends, and I've shared this before, but who knows who's watching, so if you haven't seen this before, it's for you. I have made a book of, so this is my Delta Colors book. I've made a book of this is an actual painted paint chip of every Delta color, including the discontinued ones. These are painted on the back of business cards. You can get, like if you have people in your office that are getting out of business or something like that, you can use their old cards. And so what I did was I just painted solid the color. I put the number of the paint, I put whether it was what value it was, I put if it was in what family, like this is a red violet, and then the name of the color. It'd be much nicer if you had a little label machine do that, but like this one, I did it on my computer. But I can go to leaf green. we'll see how close we are with leaf green. Okay, so here's my leaf green. So I have a little bit of a ways to go here, don't I? So I'm going to go ahead and put that whole pile in there. Now, is it important that this is the exact match for the color that I have here on my paint chip? Sorta and sorta not. What's going to happen is, if I have a bunch of mixes, and we'll go over here, let's put this guy back, where do you belong to? If I have this palette of colors, and I'm dry brushing this palette of colors, then what's going to happen is I'm going to skim this color over this color over this color, which is going to kind of unify them anyway. And now when I look at this green next to that green, I like it, and I like it next to that green. So I'm going to say I'm happy with that. I'm going to make some decisions. You know, the reality is, in painting, you're almost never going to have every paint that you ever need. And so we need to have some of these tools to be able to defend ourselves, if you will, so we don't get stuck and not be able to create. Alright, so now I have all of my stretchy tape done. I'm going to pinch down all my edges. And what color is my border? It's okay, you're going to base the border with eggplant, which is going to be dioxazine and the red violet. So I can look at that and see. But what I did for my paint colors is I put them out in order written on my palette, so I could count them if I wanted to. But I know that it's that one right there. So I'm going to get out my makeup applicators, which are available at grocery stores. Find grocery stores near you. This makes putting this stuff out so much easier. Alright, so what you'll do is you'll scoop some paint onto your palette, or scoop some paint onto this palette. You could decide whichever way you want to do it. And if you need to mix more paint, then you know how to do that too. Don't worry about staining on your paper palette. It's a white surface and the paints are pigmented, so you're probably going to get some stains that won't come off. Okay, so far I put red out and some different colors on there, and I haven't had staining, but if you do, you'll know what caused it. Okay, so then you just tap this. Because this is a non-porous sponge, you can't use like a kitchen sponge because those suck things up. But this you can use because it's non-porous, so it won't collect paint in there. Okay, so you just tap it on nice and evenly. You could also wipe it on. That's maybe a little faster way. Okay, tapping works too. You don't want to scoop underneath the tape, although we have a border on here, so it's probably not going to matter. Tapping gives you just a little bit of texture. Wiping makes it smoother and probably a little thinner, so it'll dry quicker. Okay. Just repeat that all the way around, and then probably 2 coats, so I'm definitely going to need to mix some more of my color. So we're going to dry brush with our Dusty Plum in a crisscross fashion, which we had shown you briefly on the last video. So dry brush with, what was it, Dusty Plum? Okay, with Dusty Plum, which is the color next to, okay, so Dusty Plum is over here. So we're going to get our Patty's Favorite dry brush out, and we're going to pull out a little bit of this. I'm going to make a little bit of dirt into my brush. When you dry brush, you have just a little bit of the color that you started with in your brush. And you flick on your paper towel, and get you in close. Okay, and we're going to crisscross across here. Crisscross the other way. Whoops. And then you're going to repeat that all the way around. So if you wanted to put your band around here with the chocolate cherry, or the chocolate cherry mix, You could put another row of tape right against there, or you could do a little trick. And so since I've already shown you how to tape, I want to show you how to do a little trick. So let me peel off my tape and I'll show you. Okay, so with our Lazy Susan comes this fantastic device called a Lazy Susan, which sounds kind of tongue-in-cheek. However, if I'm going to make a trim, I love, by the way, the arched slant to this. I can work a little water or something right into the side, well there, pull it up, flatten my brush in it and stuff like that. I really like that part. I'm using a new round brush that we're carrying on the website. It's a nice, affordable round brush that will do just all the work stuff you need to do, and even most of the stroke stuff you need to do. So let's get in close here. So what I can do is I can take my pinky, okay, let's keep you on camera here. I can take my pinky and I can lock it against this edge just like a compass, and I can turn my turn my Lazy Susan, and then when you start getting around the corner, you just use your hand to make it arch the other way. The neat thing about this is, once you get all of your cross hatching and your spattering and all of the little grapes hanging over and leaves hanging over and stuff like that, your trim isn't going to be too noticeable. And what I like about not stressing, like if I was painting the clock, like we talked about on the 12 rooster clock on episode 1 of Toll TV, when we're talking about that, that clock needed to have a perfect edge because it sat there all by itself. This, however, does not need to have a perfect edge because it's got all this accompanying stuff. Okay, so we don't have to be so perfect, and we love it. So we can use our Lazy Susan part to turn and straighten out. Okay, so then what you're going to do is dirty brush in from Candy Bar into the golden brown, flick on your paper towel, and the dirty brush is simply dip your brush in one color, work it in, and then load it immediately into the other color. Okay, and then flick on the paper towel is just one little flick there to give it a dry brush kind of look, describing the color of, and then this is going to be the accent on top of this. Let's go in for a close-up. Okay, so this, not super noticeable, not super on top, and pretty much just where the outy edge, whoops, the outy edge of the scallops are. You think I'd be getting good at this after a while, huh? And then you will repeat with butter yellow, and I'm assuming that's butter yellow, since it's the only yellow on my palette. Repeat, and this one's going to be lighter. You want to be careful. This is a really bright color. So repeat with butter yellow, less coverage, okay? And then our diagonal crosshatch is into the golden brown, and that's going to be just on the high points. So I like to start in the middle of this and keep the same angle all the way across. Okay, and then a little bit of butter yellow on top of that. The nice thing about this is a very repetitive project, so that means that the video can be nice and short, but you get to repeat yourself a lot. So see how nice and bright that looks, how fun. I left, you know, the paints last night, came back today, paint and play again. Isn't that a lovely sight to be able to come back and have your palette be completely fresh and wonderful? And then if I wanted to, I could just rub that stuff off, and some of it's not even dry. That's kind of an impressive little feat right there. This stuff right here is actually is dry on top. It's not dry underneath. I can still see a little bit of shine. Oh, this is wet. There you go. So, you know, if I'd had misted this area of my palette, these things wouldn't have dried, although the idea is you want them to dry. But, so just a little squirt, seal your palette. It's that rubber sealed gasket that makes it all doable. And boy, that's a nice thing to come back to. You know, not to have to, I know it's not a big drag to squirt out paint, but the more time I spend opening paint bottles, squirting out stuff, taking palettes away, yada yada, then the more time I don't get to paint, and I'd rather just get to the fun stuff, which is painting. Alright, so in the directions it says to base coat these leaves. What I want you to do is kind of a dry base coat, which isn't dry brushing, just kind of sort of fill in with really dry paint, scratchy, but go to your edges, just to fill in a little bit of that background color. Dry brushing is a step of highlighting, and so we will simply be highlighting our leaves as we go along. But if we jump to our highlight color from black, if we start at black and we jump up to the highlight color, then what's going to happen is we will jump too fast, too far, and so we don't want to do that. So we need to cut the black with a value lighter, which is this very dark green. And so we don't need a base coat, we just need some green behind there. Oh, and by the way, I would love to point out that you watched me put the purple on my piece, and I'm happy to say I almost can't see any purple, so I will show you how to rectify that in a little bit. After you get your leaves just sort of based in, erase whatever graphite lines you can. So we're going to paint our grapes. You've got two sets of grapes, and I want to point out one thing that you need to pay attention to. The red grapes or the purple grapes go over the purple wines, so we wouldn't want to paint yellow grapes over Merlot because it's not a white wine. So make sure that you get those straight. Okay, so I have sort of based, and notice that these leaves are not screaming loud at you. One thing that we'll do as we paint this is we're going to balance out our project. According to when we get our basic colors on there, we can go back and we can beef up highlights and things. What we don't want to do is, finish these little stripey things here and our little accents and then bring them up to like electric, and then have to bring the whole project up to an electric level. So I'd rather keep these a little bit low in my contrast and then increase it if I need to. Okay, so same thing with our leaves. I'm not going to go in and fix my purple, which isn't showing very much. I've got like one spot I can see. I'm not going to fix that until after I get done, because I want to make sure that I have a good balance of color, and this purple can help me get more of that balance of color when I'm looking at this project. Maybe this looked a little dark to me, and it got fixed and beefed up later to marry. Like if this leaf is sitting on, maybe this leaf is sitting on here, and this is black, and it's a value. Let's take out our value scale. Black is a value 1, and so maybe then this purple is like a value 3 or 2. Then it cuts the value, because this leaf is definitely here in a 4 or 5. By cutting the black 1 value, our leap isn't so far. We don't have to jump over 2 other values to get to it. So if we can skip every other one, it's a little bit more pleasing to the eye. So that is what you use your value scale for, to keep harmony kind of colors in paint. So we're going to paint our purple grapes first, and we're going to begin our sequence. All of this is done with a sequence. We'll talk about our brush. Let's get a little bit closer. Okay. What you'll need is one of Patty's favorite dry brushes. This is cut in an oval, like a cat's tongue or a filbert, and it's also shaved from side to side. It's made with a nice firm filament, and that means that it's going to hold up to all the beating that I'm about to give it. Dry brushing is done in a sequence. So what we have is we're going to go from our dark color to the next lighter to the next lightest. Okay, and so that's going to be that value thing again. We're climbing up the value scale into the lightness. Okay, when we load our brush, what we're going to do is scoop out a little bit of our purple, and we're going to load flat into this and keep loading. I'm not going to turn my brush over. Flat, 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 flat. Keep loading and loading. I'm pushing all the way down to my ferrule. There's a whole video called How to Dry Brush on this technique, and there's so much to know about it. It covers the dry rubbing, it covers dry brushing. That's a good video if you need more than this instruction. Okay, so then what I've got here is I've got a big, let's see if I can get this so that you can see it, big juicy glom. Let's go in a little further. Okay, so I've got, see how juicy that is on the top. That's the top. That's the side I blended on, and that's all flat. There's our juicy stuff. Okay, so then we're going to need a flat folded paper towel, and we flick one time on our paper towel. I'm not wiping, I'm just flicking. Now I have to load a little more paint because I just wiped all my paint away. Okay, one flick on the paper towel. Let me show you a wrong way. If I get a strong edge right there, I call that a saddlebag, and we need to get rid of that. So I would twist my brush over to the side that has that bag. Notice that my paint puddle right here is extraordinarily flat. I'm not pulling out from the middle and getting ridges that I'll create into my brush. I'm just working on the very fringe edge of that puddle of paint. Flick on my paper towel. Alright, so one flick on my paper towel, then I'm going to just with a circular stroke just create a little bit of the color. It's going to be scratchy looking. I'm going to do my outer ones first. I stroke to one side, then shape following, I go to the other side. So we want to keep our highlights, we want to keep our shading, we want to be able to see black next to things that are on top or whatever. This first color, it's not as imperative, so I'm not going to worry too much about it. I just kind of want to get it blocked with a little bit of that purple. Okay, block it in, make sure you don't have any holes. Okay. If you have spaces where it looks like something should be there, fill in just a little touch of color, because you know how grapes are all layered and stuff like that. You'll do all of your purple grapes, and then by the time you get back to this one, these will be dry. You never dry brush on wet paint because it will grab. So with dry brushing, we're going to have our color on our brush that we have here. What makes it wonderful is we're going to go dirty brush into the next lightest color. By making it dirty brush, this makes these two colors belong together, so it gives harmony to your painting. If you ever feel like you've jumped too fast too far, go ahead and simply repeat. Maybe like if you go from here to here and you feel like that's too light, do a little bit of a mix of both, and then maybe repeat a little bit with this plus that, then just that. Does that make sense? So you would repeat a step that would be a little bit darker. So now what I'm going to do, you can pick a side to have your highlight on. Flick on your paper towel always. Remember the leaves, the grapes that are tucked up under the leaves are going to be the ones that stay the darkest. So I'm not going to get these too high up. And so just to one side, this is so much easier than other grapes. Really, this was the ladies down in North Carolina that made me decide on this particular piece, because I really do feel that there's a lot to be learned about how easy dry brushing is on this piece, because they were moaning about the grapes being difficult, and I was like, no, these are so easy to do. So they truly are easy, and I see a mistake I'm about to make. We need to make sure that we get rid of our lines before we get too crazy with our highlights, because that will screw things up. So make sure you erase your white lines. So now, whoops, and I've talked it dry. Nothing else, I am a talker. Okay, so I'm going to keep the highlights more to the bottom. The ones on top are rounded over the ones underneath. And I'm just doing little kind of C-stroke kind of movement. I'll move in just in a second here. Let me reload. The top of the paint seems to, let me see how close I can get that. Okay, here we go. So we're just little C-strokey type things, and then I flatten it in the middle so that I get that flattened look that has a little bit more of a, you don't want any flat lines, and it's just a tickle. It's ever so soft a touch. Okay. And all your highlights are going to be on the same side. I'm running out of paint. Time to reload. Let's see if I can squeeze one more. Usually with dry brushing, when you're highlighting, you start where the highlights are the lightest. Notice how I just tucked that little nug of stuff in there. This probably looks like it's got a little bit too big a gap too, so I could grow this grape. Make this be a little bit bigger grape. Yeah, there we go. So that fixed that whole problem. Then we go into our lighter color with my brush dirty. I'm not wiping it out. Blending the two colors together, flick on the paper towel. Okay, almost dry. Now this is covering less area, so in essence we're just highlighting our grapes. So, oops, you can stay out of that dark side. Stay away from the dark side. Okay, see how pretty those are looking already. And see, I'm not having to reload my brush as much because there's already the color in there. I'm not using as much of the color. Okay, now I'm going to repeat my highlight. And it's going to be much brighter. And then this is going to be less coverage. See how that does? And you'll know if it's too bright. It'll be like a neon sign. Almost just one flick is doing it. Okay, and now if we back out, you have a bunch of grapes. Okay, I went and I left and I went to make lunch and I didn't cover up my palette, except for here's what you can do. You can cheat. If it hasn't been a long time that's formed a skin, I can just go ahead and give them a little mist. Pop on my lid. It'd be like a little hydrator. So that is how I will refresh that palette. So, left that covered for about 5 minutes and it seems like we softened up all the skin. So that's a good thing. This palette is fantastic. I'm really, really liking the sloped sides of it. You know, when I can dip into my paint and just flatten it in my brush. Very, very nice. And because it keeps my paint puddled instead of it flattening out, then I can dip the corner of my brush into it, and that is also very nice. All right, to finish up our purple grapes, we're going to put some butter yellow, which is our only yellow, and that's going to be not dirty brushed. Flick on my paper towel, make sure that you're not overloaded with anything, and that is going to be on just a few of the grapes up on the, I'll get you on camera, on the upper, let's see, left side. Okay, flick. And then remember we want those areas a little bit darker under there. Okay, so just a little bit of a yellowy color. And you know, I think I'm going to go ahead and get into my gold plus my yellow. Not liking how gold it isn't. I like it to show up just a little bit more like a yellow, so a little bit more gold. Makes me happy. Okay, and so we'll just flick on the paper towel. Anything that gets too strong, just go ahead, blot it with your finger. Okay, so here's my thoroughly rinsed out, no paint coming off of it, dry brush, and maybe my palette flat. You can use the brush cleaner on your waxy palette, but don't use it on plastic. I would not use it in the, this is a special kind of plastic bottle, so it doesn't like plastic. And paint is plastic, which makes a lot of sense. Paint is a kind of plastic. Now look at how much stuff is coming out of this brush. So in order for me to save my brush and be able to continue to do chiselly things with it, then I can get it cleaned out. Really ideally, you should clean out your brush every time you're done using it. And you can thoroughly clean it with the brush cleaner. But, you know, I end up time struggle and, you know, lazy probably more than anything. So I don't always get that done. But this is how you'll recover a brush, and it's always going to be up in that chisel. That's where dry brushing will kill your brush. It's up there in that chisel, so I'm up at the ferrule, not the chisel, nerve. Anyway, so just go ahead and work that out. You can soak it, you can make a little foil pouch and soak it until, you know, the next day. Don't do back and forth like that. Okay, that's bad for it. Okay. Rinse it out, soapy water if you want to, and voila, I have, I don't know if you can see it or not, but I have a micro fine chisel again on my brush. No errant stray flyaways. Okay, so that's all you gotta do to recover a paintbrush. And then I could just wipe that off and continue like usual. So we were floating on the far side, and it really does make the grapes pop. Whoops, back out. Now, if you decide you would like your grapes to be a little bit more purple or a little bit more some other color, this bunch of grapes, I have some kind of weird thing going on right there. I think I could really use a little bit of a wash of something on there, just on one side. So what I'm going to do is just take, maybe I want to go purplier. And really washy. And blot my paintbrush all the way until the shine goes away. Okay. Back out a little bit further so you can see. And then just glaze just one side or the bottom sides. And that just pops them up just a little bit more purple. You can do it right over that yellow, doesn't matter. Off to one side, don't do it over the blue. Okay, in this case. Now, I just really see a bullet hole right there. I call them bullet holes. I'm going to go into the middle value, and I'm just going to tickle in the shape of, well, it's a half moon shape, that's not right. And then highlight. Now it's an extra grape in there, and it's not so, I don't know, such a black hole. Okay, so onwards onto the yellow grapes. This is going to be first candy bar brown. Okay. See, I love this. Watch. Yikes. Just with your finger you can even peel that stuff off. Now, I don't want to use my finger. However, could. Okay, so loading my paint. Careful not to get ridges. Okay, flick on my paper towel. Tickle, 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 and remember we're going to need to put away our white lines as soon as we get that done. So we will tickle on the same exact steps as the purple, 100% exactly the same. You want to make sure you erase. I'm really bad about following my own advice. Get anything too bold, just blot it with your finger. Reload. As you, people will ask me when I'm teaching a class, as you, how do you know how much pressure to do? Well, the first pressure you use is very, very light pressure, and then you'll get a little bit firmer and firmer with more pressure, and then you'll find that you can't get anything done at all, or you start making a mess. That's when you reload some more paint on your brush. That's when you start making a mess or you can't get any result at all. So you've got to trust your gut and know that your brush is probably behaving just fine, and you just need to, you know, understand that it's not you. Like, don't try harder because your paintbrush is running out of paint. Actually, go ahead and try loading more paint and see if it's that. Okay, so that looks a little bold. Alright, so repeat, obviously, same steps. As I'm using my little tray here, one of the things I'm really appreciating is the fact that it has sides and it isn't loaded with paint. I've got a classic one that most of you will relate to, and this really isn't infomercially about this product, it just really frickin' works. But, so say you have your sleeve, you know, on here, and you've got your regular flat palette, okay, regular flat palette where your paint is wadded up right there, and you drag your sleeve right across. All you have to do is skim the top of whatever you're dealing with, and this one, I could just put a palette flat on top of that, and I didn't have any paint getting on anything. You know, you can run something straight over it and you don't have anything on it. So because they're recessed wells, and because it's sturdy, you know, you can chuck this around as you're moving things. You know, you've got your palette right there and all that. So I'm just really having a lot of fun using this palette. Okay, so then our next color. So I've gone away, have some exciting news. If you can handle the process of this, this is pretty amazing. The shortcut, this is a dry brush shortcut. So because I was using this palette, I discovered this. Normally you would have a bubble of paint and it's not perky enough or high enough for you to do this in. But the process normally is work the brush, 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 until you get that big bubble of paint on top. What I discovered was I could dip my entire paintbrush into that up to about the ferrule, and then bring that down here and work it so that it's flat and no saddlebags. Okay, and I am in just a fraction of the time ready to go versus building it up, building it up, building it up in my palette. But what you've got to be really careful for, if you dip like that and you don't spend the time to make sure that your saddlebags aren't there and that you're flat on one side, you will make a bloody mess when you get onto your project. So that's what I mean by if you can handle it, then it's fantastic. So now I've dirtied that. Now what you don't want to do is you don't want to really dirty your brush that way, so I have to wipe the other side of my paintbrush down. And we're going to go into our next color. Scoop some of that out and dirty brush into that. So love, love, love the shortcut of being able to just dip instead of building that up in my brush. Flicking on my paper towel, and the same ding dang diddly technique as we used for the purple grapes. Okay, and then we go dirty brush into our next yellow. And because it's not as much paint that I'm putting on, it doesn't require as much drying time, so I can just repeat right onto here. Isn't this fun how fast these grapes appear? It's almost like watching a little magic seed video or something with time lapse, you know? It's just like, wow, first they were black, then they're grapes. Okay, then next yellow. All dirty brush. I love that you don't have to load water and all those kinds of things with dry brushing. You want to be careful. Yellow is going to be more obvious than purple, so you don't want your yellow grapes to get away from you. Okay, and just repeat. Okay, I want to share with you, these are the grapes I just did. Okay, then I used my same brush and loaded a little bit more of my highlight color, and then I went to work on these. Notice that this yellow is not sitting down on this candy bar brown, and the reason for that is because I don't have my brush as dirty as it was when I made those grapes. That's just a much browner color and everything sits down on there just nicely. So this looks chalky and it looks a little sudden, and so that is when you notice that things aren't looking quite as pretty, assess it and see if that's what the reason could be. And so I had just gone over here into that paint, but I'm going to go back and dirty my brush in the candy bar and then come over and load. And so I will re-dirty for each group of grapes because now I know that this yellow is going to be just a little bit too bold for that. Okay, and now that should sit on there much nicer. Okay. I'm going to float a little bit of our red violet mixture. This is actually a float. I'm using an angle shader. Okay, and it's going to be over here in this dark side. Okay, just on the lower left side. And just to the left side. Not too stripey. Just enough to be interesting. Okay. Well, you've got that color in your brush, adding that little bit of a float slash glaze to the purple grapes. to balance it out is a good idea. And notice this is really kind of interesting. This looks very red on this grape, but it looks very, very purple on this grape. So I find it neat that it pulls out the two different kinds of colors. Now we're going to take our leaf green. Okay. Like an angle shader, I'll tell you why. When you are using your angle shader and you do a C stroke, you don't have, or you don't spin your hand, but because it has that toe, you're already at an angle and it's like it's shoving it into the corner. So these are great for coming straight down and then cutting across things and then rounding things out. Okay, so when you're floating, you know, and this is just an awesome brush. When you're floating down here, you come across, then it's a little arch. And then notice, I don't know if you can see this, let's talk about brush for a second. Notice that when I hold this brush, when I hold a flat, I am straight up and down. When I hold an angle shader, I'm like a pencil, but on the flat, so that ridge makes a horizontal line. So when I'm doing my C stroke, I'm not having to shove and control so much. I just do a little bit, almost like a pity-patty kind of thing. Okay, just a little touch, touch, touch. And it's not so much about start, stop, irk, and all that kind of thing. So when you're holding your angle shader, that's the way to hold it, is right down there, like a pencil, and it's a little bit, just laying it on its flat. Okay, and get that angle. Once you practice that, you know, it's not over here. You could do it, but the way to get control with that point, which is what's so cool about an angle shader, you need to be on your, off your point, if you will. Okay? Anyway, so we are in leaf green, and I digress. I apologize. And we're going to be on these yellows. Look. And we'll get some yellow green over on that side. Like almost like they're unripe. Okay, do that to all of these, and the green leaves don't get any of that color. The green leaves. Alright, I'm moving back up to my larger size dry brush. Now on the big leaves I'm going to use, if I can get my stuff together. When I get in this close, I can't find myself. Okay, there we are. So the ones that have flipped leaves, okay, this is the Yellow Monster marking pen. You want to mark those. Okay, if they're flipped, mark all of the flips so that you can respect that flip, and we'll talk about that right away. So you totally will know what we're doing. All right, so we're going to go down our sequence. We based in, good grief. Back out, there we are. We based in this color. Okay, so we're going to go from darkest green to lightest green. So you don't have to name these things, it's just darkest to lightest. We're going to go here, to this one, and finally that one, and we'll probably have some yellow on there as well. But, so we have to dirty our brush into that darkest green, and then we have to pull out some of this and load our brush into that. Okay, flat, make sure you don't have saddlebags. Okay, flick on your paper towel. And we'll just start right on with that flip right there. Okay. So what I need to do is, when you have a flip, you have to have the strong colored edge where the flip is. So I have to use the chisel of my brush and get that established. Okay, now when I do the rest of my leaf painting, I want to stay away from, whoops, this isn't quite round, it's got the scallop, so I end up flipping it the wrong way. Okay, so the rest of this I'm going to dry brush using I'm going to lead up near the top, and then as I come out into these leaf tip areas, I'm adding pressure, chiseling on my brush, and then I'll feather, I'll feather as soon as I have any paint on my brush. Okay, feather it down. And see how that's already bright? I didn't put more of the dirty into my brush. And so that is acting like it's too bright. Okay, so I've got that on there. I'm leaving that dark edge. That's like pretend like it's shadowed. Now I'll come on this other side. I'm going to go back and dirty into that color and then load that other color. Flick on the paper towel. Lead from the chisel. And then I want it darker in the middle, so I'm going to just ever so softly tickle that. And maybe bring that around there. Okay. Hello, could you see any of that? So I led with the middle, and then feather tickled the edge, and then I did connect where the flip was going to go. Now see how this is darker in the middle? Okay. That means that that's going to look a little bit like it's that vein thing, and so we can put a vein up the middle of that leaf. We'll go into our next color, dirty brush. And then we will once again do that chisel edge, but we're not going to cover the whole thing this time, just the chisel. And same thing here, we'll do the edges where it was brighter, and then just feather, feather, and chisel. Keep it clean, we don't want fuzzy edges there, like I just did. Feather, feather to soften. Okay, and then we go one more up. Dirty brush. And once again, we have to be aware of what's going on with our whole piece. We don't want our leaf to become, you know, mondo crazy green leaf and we can't see grapes. So, and I think what we'll do is we'll leave that right there. We'll do some more leaves, and the more away from the grapes. See how bright that green leaf is looking next to those, next to the grapes and stuff. The more our leaves are near our grapes, the more bright it can be. So this is very close. This is further away, so this is going to be a dull leaf. This one up here is going to be a dull leaf. These are going to be, this is going to be brighter, and this is going to be very bright, and then this is going to be duller because it's moving away. So what you'll do is you'll skip not having quite so much highlight, or you'll put, like for example, my highlights are going to be down here on this one. My highlights will be up here on this one so that I have a bridge. This is bright, bright, bright grapes. So this is going to be bright, and then maybe a little bright over here. Then we're going to use purple and our stem in here to carry to maybe bright over here. Maybe a touch down here. Then we're going to have bright on this side. Do you see where I'm going? So we're going to use our lights to create a little bridge walking around. Okay, so as you're doing this, look at your picture first of all, but also take a look at how to walk the bright to the bright and connect those dots. Don't make bright everywhere, just walk your color through. So don't do everything to everybody. If you do, it'll be nice and uniform, but it'll have a little bit more of a dance to it. And then what I did on this piece, okay, so I increased strength of brightness so that that's reflecting on that and made these a little bit brighter here. Got a little bit of blue out here. These all connect. I can go from here to here to here to here to here and not a very big step. Okay, so as you're connecting them, what I also did was, maybe this was a little bit too big a reach, so what I did is I spattered at the end of this to have that reach and have it be that bridge. Same thing here. This was getting a little lonely over here, and this was too, so I spattered brown here and I spattered green here. Those two things fill that hole of color. Okay, so we're going to do all that at the end. Same thing here. This needed a bridge to here, so these have created their own bridges, but the spattering helped bridge the distance between one element to the other so they weren't so lonely. Okay, so that's where we're going to go next, is leaves. So I'm going to get busy on my leaves and get the highlights and stuff. As I do each one color, if I find anything that is unique and interesting to say, I'll stop and show you. But basically you want to get all of your first coats of color on. Okay, don't do dirty brush into them until you get all of your firsts done, because I don't want you to get concentrated green here and then hate it and have to restart over. Whereas if you do them all and you step back and look, you can decide if you need to go another step or a little bit more here, a little bit more there. It's easier to develop it if you do them all together. Okay, all right, so now I've got the first layer of green on everything. Okay, and you can definitely spot my done leaf. Okay, and now we look at it and we see that we can still see, if we squint our eyes, we can still see very much more so all of the grapes before we see our leaves. This is how we want it. We do not want our leaves to be the center of our grape attention. So I'm going to dirty brush into the next color down. Flick on my paper towel. Okay, and then we're going to do that brightness thing. Let me see if I can keep my palette up here and there. So I'm going to do the brightness thing, so I'm going to build this side of this leaf more than this side. So we'll have some interest over there, but not so interesting as this side. Try not to make them too fuzzy. I'm getting a little bit too many tails on mine. They're looking like fuzzy leaves. Okay, then, and where did I put my pink color? There we are. Reload. Flick on my paper towel. So, and you guessed it, I'm going to keep this bright to this. This is different than looking for your center of interest as far as like a light source center of interest. This is not a light source center of interest, it's a center of interest center of interest. So that means that we're looking to see where we want to keep our attention versus where the light might be shining from. This is folk art, so this is not something that is going to be real. Okay, you can't argue with folk art. That's what I love. Okay, so next we go into the next lightest color. Sometimes you might repeat a color. So if you think that your greens maybe didn't get bright enough green, then repeat that color green without so much dirt in your brush. Okay, and then we will just simply build. This is much less. Be careful about getting it there too soon. If it looks too chalky, which that is, lean in towards chalk. I'm going to go backwards a little bit and dirty my paint a little bit more. Okay, then I'll come here and just barely highlight those. And here. Now this is going to be our more dominant leaf, so we can have it be just a little bit brighter up here because it's right smack on top of that grape. So, see how we managed those. We'll go up. I think we'll go one more time with our bright. Squinting at it, going, okay, just maybe a little bit more. Kiss here, maybe a little bit here, touch there. Leave him dark. These are kind of leading, okay. All right, so I think I'm going to go with that, and that's where our leaves are, and then we'll do a hint of yellow on them as well. So here we are with our second coat of colors, and you can see that these that I brought up to the higher point are definitely brighter than these. And so now the thing that happens is we wipe our brush out, and I'm noticing, because I have a light really close to where my palette is, so that it can be lit for you guys, I'm noticing that because my paints are out and I'm not keeping them moistened, I'm getting a little bit of skin again. So when you notice that that's happening, just give them that little mist with your mister. This is just a super duper fine mister. Give them a little mist, and then the skin should soften right back up as long as you catch it before it's all dry. Alright, so now what we need to do is we need to walk around this piece and give ourselves our highlights where we want them. Oops. Get a little bright in the middle, just wipe it down. Alright, so somehow or another what I have here, I have a double saddlebag situation. I'm getting something on both sides of my brush. I'm going to flatten my brush back down on both sides. Sometimes it's time, like this is a lot of leaves and stuff, it's just better just to go ahead and wash your brush out and go with that. But because I'm stubborn, I'm just going to flatten everything out rework some of that paint in there. Flick on my paper towel. Let's see what we get now. Okay, so I'm gonna go over here. Much better. This is where you can smooth the colors out. Mine are a little stripy. This is the step that you can use. Remember, the further away from the grapes we get, the less bright we want to be. So I can be brighter on both sides of this one. Reload. Same thing here. Looking to carry the colors around, getting a little out of control right here. So we can, okay, so we didn't talk about this. What could I do if I didn't like this? You would simply go back one step of colors, dirty brush into it, and then as soon as this is dry, you could tickle it down with the darker other color. And that should take care of your problem completely. Yep, doesn't matter already. Yeah, loving the rigidity of this tray. This is fantastic. These larger slots right here are for your mediums and stuff. If I ran out of mixing space in the middle here while that's drying, I could come over here onto this. I could even put my paints out here and use it as a secondary palette. So, and same type thing, it all just peels off. And you can actually, it's kind of cool, you can actually use the top as a palette as well. Unless you run it across rocks and get it all screwed up. But you could still use it as a palette, just be harder to get the paint off of that one spot. Okay, I'm just going to put here and there. Or you can really tell when you do run out of paint, because it is just like nothing's going to happen. Okay, so feather that down. This is really just like little, tons and tons of little lines of like hair. If you look at your hair, you can't see through your hair when you have a lot of it because all of those little lines overlap, and that's what we're doing here, is we're just creating these little lines of paint that you won't be able to see through, and it looks like it's all well blended when you get done, and in reality you haven't blended anything. You've just blended layers, I guess. The layers blend themselves more than anything. Okay, so we are just about there now. We look at it and we see, okay, maybe that's just a little bit on the leafy side. The leaves are taken over just a little bit. So what you do is you switch back to your other brush. Go in the instance of the yellow. Go palette shopping, as I learned from Sue Pruitt. Go palette shopping, look around your palette, look for a color that you want to increase, load that in your brush, and go to work increasing it. I think this gold is good. And what did I get into? I got into, oh, I don't even know what I got into, wow. Some sort of blue or green or something. So I'm going to increase the yellow on my grapes, on my yellow grapes. And now, see, that's much brighter than the other grapes. Okay, let's see if we can see them both. Yeah, so those are the dark ones, those are the bright ones, obviously. So I will go through and I will brighten up my purples. I will brighten it. Now be careful, brighter doesn't necessarily mean whiter. Okay, I didn't go to my yellowest, whoops, get you on pad. I didn't go to my yellowest color. I went to my goldest color, and I have to have that gold in there or I can't put the yellow on it, because if I go straight into yellow, then what's going to happen is I'm going to end up with bright white lights of yellow on there, and I won't be able to see that it is yellow. It'll be just chalky looking. So now I can go into yellow, dirty brush, into that brighter yellow. And now the gold that I put down first is going to support that. Okay, and so now that one's way brighter than that one. Okay, and so that's what we do. We're just, now this is a balancing step. And then we can repeat with our wash of purple and stuff like that if we want to. And let's see what a difference. Okay, so we have these two right here compared to these two right here. And I think it's a remarkable difference just looking at them from a little bit of a distance. So I'm going to do that with my purple as well. Our purple grapes. I'm going to go into probably a mix of my two purples. I don't want it too bright and I don't want it too dark. And so what I'll do with those is I'll just increase my highlights of purple. Now you could wait to do your, and now I'll go into just the light purple. You could wait to do your glazing and everything until after you have achieved a balance, and that way you won't have to go over it like I'm doing and then I'll have to repeat stuff. I'm going to steal a little bit of my blue. I don't want that on both sides. Okay, we'll steal a little bit of our yellow. And give them a little bit more glaze. Okay, so now we see that we can see that just much better. Go into maybe the brightest for our highlight. Yeah, that's much better. Alright, finally we get to do some vines. We're going to go into our, just dribbled water in there. I'm going to go into our candy bar brown, and I'm using a round instead of a liner. The reason for this is I need vines in some areas that are bigger than others, and I don't want to reload my brushes often. These new rounds that we have a remarkable point, and they even make a lovely, what do you call it, stroke. So they're a pretty nice little brush. Let's get in close so you can see. Okay. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use a combination of my tiptoe on my brush. Ding! So I can make a very fine line, or I can make a thick, thin line. And then what I do with my brush is I twist it between my thumb, rocking it back and forth as I'm doing stuff. And I'm not holding the brush like this, okay? I'm kind of allowing the brush to do whatever it wants as long as it's looking about like I want it. So you got to have thin paint for that to work. Okay. You could very easily take your paint and thin it and put it in one of these dividers. That's a good idea for washy type substance. That way it's kind of contained. You can keep adding water to it and it doesn't spread all out. Okay, so here we go. So I'm going to start out thin, and then I'm going to push my bristle brush, reload as I need to. Okay, and it's going to be thick where it needs to hold something thick up, crossing in front, and thin, and then thick and thin. You don't have to have it go crisscrossy, crisscrossy, okay? And that's going to be our foundation, okay? On the tendrils, you're going to be more up on your tippy toe. And jerky vines are better. They look a little bit gnarlier. Okay, you can have some coming out wherever you think you need them. Be careful with your vines. I have seen more people pick up vine brushes, whoops, and do this and call it a vine. And you know, that's just, it's terrible. Don't do that. It's just, it's not right. If you need to do something like that, then trace your vines, okay? That trace, push, lift, irregular, and then if I'm going to freehand something like this, when I let the brush make these little jiggity jags, I bring my my extra vining thing out of the knots or the notches that are made. Like that's where that will come. And then you want to make sure to lift off. You don't want to end your vines on a straight note. If you can see how that's just very blunt. If you're making something straight, end it gracefully. Okay, don't, you know, irk and have it blunt. Oh. And usually there's a little bit of curve to things, okay? So, there are vines. Look. And, you know, I'm not exactly going on where my lines were. I can make different curlicues. Don't put too many curlicues in, because that is a mistake that a lot of people make. They don't make them look natural, so they just have random odd acts of things going on. Have them disappear between things. The nice thing about these being dark is you can kind of have a few extras in there and you won't notice if you don't re-highlight them all. Okay, now this one is stupid because it goes the opposite way and that's not right. But I'm going to make it make more sense by just making a little cluster of everything there. I'm finishing that around. We're going to do the same thing with golden brown. We'll take a little puddle of that and add some liquidy water. Dirty brush is fine. That's just going to make everybody get along. Okay, and we're going to just highlight. So I'm going to dry my brush out just a little bit. Don't want it in the same place as everything else. So I want to bring up the things that I like and not bring up the things that I don't like. Okay, so, and we might even have, you know, highlights. High spots, low spots. If you're going to put that in the puddles, you've got to turn your palette so you can reach into it. Alright, so these will just get these highs and lows. Darker the area should be, the more dark you should leave it. Okay, but pretty much everything gets done. Just don't make it be don't cover up your other line. Make it be within. You could take this to a whole new level. You could, you know, work these vines and make them be absolutely gorgeous. I'm using them more for color than I am for exact perfection. You know, you can bet if I was doing a certification piece, I'd be shading and highlighting all these and yada yada, but I don't see the need when I just need color to move around. And once again, folk art, right? So just keep walking around. It's amazing. Look at how, look at the difference. Oops, I'm dyslexic today. Okay, look at the difference in, once we put these colors in there, how that is connecting these elements. This almost looks like polka dots, okay, and this looks like there's a color bridge going around it. So that is the goal. Yeah, I'm going to repeat a little bit of the same color on areas where I think they could use just a little bit more strengthening, you know, i.e. areas that are just a really strong visual bridge, or I didn't hit them enough. Now this is balancing. This is where I take that and, you know, just because you did the steps doesn't mean you're done. You know, if you do the steps, you got to go back and you have to, you know, refine them sometimes. And this is a nice dim dull color to have to do with. You know, it's not that bright yellow, and you know, so it's a safe little color to deal with. Now maybe we might add some little tendrils. Now that color might sink into the, without the brown underneath, the color might just sink in, or we don't want it to sink in. Okay, grapes have all those little grabby things, right? And then we go into the other color and we beef that up. Now we got to go and give, and now I like just sketching this. It's giving it a rougher hue. Let me show you. Okay, we'll do this one right here. Is this where we're at? No, this is where we're at. Okay. So I'm just kind of moving my hand, just almost sort of tapping, and it just roughens that up quite a bit. Okay, instead of being this like curlicue, now it's a little bit more like it's a vine wound together. So I'll show you that again. Are we on the right one? Let's see, right. Oh, sorry. So I'm wiggling my arm. Maybe you even have some other things escaping off of that. And we could go into our vines and do a little bit of that too. Careful of this color, don't get it too bright. Alright, so that's what we'll do with our vines. We'll rough them up a little bit. Remember, things are bigger where they come out of the main branch, and they're smaller where they get to the end. Okay, yeah, it's looking a little bit viney. That's kind of fun. Okay. I think I say K enough. That's good. And then we have one more highlight color on top of this, which is going to be, I think, it says golden brown. I think we'll just go straight golden brown. I think we could do just a little bit more, and we have to give our leaves get a little highlight. They get their vein with that golden brown color. So you got to pull it from, make sure that you have some golden brown bringing that in. You got to pull it in from the back of the leaf. Don't pull it in from the tip, or you won't get that gentle, lovely tip. Okay, so unless you just have just a little bit to do. Now, I would like to say that this is coming together very, very nicely, and I did not get out my book of colors to compare my my conversions. This was just a straight conversion. Now, I did show you that one that I could do that, but I didn't use it, and I think that this is coming out just lovely. Colors go together because they're dry brushed. They don't need to go together because they're Delta or Deco Art or whatever brand of paint you like. Dry brushing is a great unifier. So now I'm going to go back through and I'm going to kind of dry brush on these stems where I think I need to increase my road work. You can't see it. Okay, the eye's kind of carrying around the center, so that needs just a little bit more scratchier now. My paint's not so liquid. Yeah, I'm liking that. Okay. So with our letters, they are going to go, you can read your own paints, I guess. candy bar. You flatten your round out in candy bar. And you basically just kind of outline or line your letters. And there is a how to make lettering DVD on the website as well. That is excellent for showing you how to create your own lettering and how to decorate it and stuff. Okay, so this just gets neatly lined. If you have, tops and bottoms, use the point of your brush. If you have a thicker area, press. Okay, keep letters neat, otherwise letters get futzy. And you'll notice that I do not freehand. I have the worst handwriting in the world. It's hysterical that I paint for a living because I have just horrendous handwriting. I could paint it better than I could handwrite it. Anyway, I always trace my letters. I never freehand letters, otherwise it will look ugly. So, but I have lots of cheater techniques to show you. Okay, so lettering, just to show you, finished. We're going golden brown then, dirty brushed. And these kind of get highlighted down the middle. Not at the top and the bottom. Okay. Gonna make them readable though. If you can't read them with just the top and the bottom, then you have to do another step of highlights so that the first step is legible. Okay, then I'm going to go back, do one more of the golden brown. Okay, and then we're straw. That's supposed to know better yellow, sorry. And that's up the middle of those. Okay, see how those are popping up. And once again, on these little dot things that are there on the sides, they're kind of receding dots. They are there as a color bridge, and they're treated exactly the same way as wet paint on wet paint doesn't make much sense, but they're treated just like the leaves and stuff. So that is to get this word next to this word. So that's why they're there. Okay, make sure that your stripes on your stuff are bright enough. If you need to increase them, now's the time. You want to increase your letters. Okay, that'll work. Yay! If you want just a hair, and I don't know that I need it, but I'll show you anyway. You want just a hair of that butter yellow up here. That can kind of ease things, make things be a little bit more uniform if you need just a little bit more brightening. Okay, we're going to put some leaf green on our leaf areas, and this is going to be in it. We're going to, let's see if we can show you. So this is going to be off the leaf, completely off the leaf. I'm going to mix. In this case, I'm not getting enough visual. I'm going to mix a little bit of that lightest green in with that green. Okay, and then it's on my tippy toe of my brush. And see, blah! That's out of control. So how do I get that off of there? We go into our, I wet my eraser. This eraser won't take off fresh paint. I think instead of using my round brush, I think I need to move to my liner brush. Go into my Mighty Fine liner and my paint, wherever that was. Okay, so just keeping this to emphasize, see that's just too bright, so I've got it too much the other direction. I'll blot that. Okay. I'm trying to accent the fact that these leaves have, you know, just different shapes to them. So you could use a mixture of the two colors. Like this is going to be darker up here. Okay, you could have it come around the top if you want to. Hello. Apparently somebody needs to take a break. Okay. I'm not on my leaf at all. Okay, I'm off of the leaf. Just kind of add some movement or something. I don't know why I like to do this, but I do it a lot. We are also going to do with the purple leaves, the purple grapes, we're going to go into our periwinkle. And we will put some purple lines around our grapes. Okay, on our yellow, we go into butter yellow, which might be just a little bit bright. So I think I'm going to mix that down with my golden brown. Just kind of fills in some fluff there. Okay. Anywhere where you need a little bit of extra oomph, go ahead and put it. Alright, I want to talk about spattering for a minute. I have two tools here that are, one is a giant heavy brush. Let's get you a little bit while you're out here. One is a giant heavy brush and the other is a filbert comb brush. And it's cut so that if it's like a Santa Claus beard brush kind of thing. But they're not all created equally, as I have discovered. So what I want to do is show you, what I'm doing is I'm mixing watery paint, okay, and I'm fully loading the brush in the watery paint. Now if I were to just go up above and smack my brush on over my piece, then I would get a snow effect, okay? So, but if let's do this as a whole piece of paper, okay, so it's 8.5 by 11. So let me put a mark here, and then let me put a circle here. Okay, so that's little, and that's bigger. Okay, now we'll go telephoto in. First we'll go, if we want to do something big. Okay, if we want to spatter on something big. So what we're going to do is we're going to raise our, you can't see, sorry. We want to raise up, we have this piece for knocking against. And then I'm knocking right about the silver, the ferrule line. Okay, get that paint off there. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to tap right smartly over where I want the paint to fall. Okay, now one or two little dots escaped, but if we go in real tight, you will see that this is like controlled spattering. Okay, so this is like there's a couple little dots here, a couple here, but for the most part, all of my dots landed right here in the middle. Okay, I've got a couple little spare ones, but now we'll do it right on the X, and you'll see the difference this can make. Okay, so now this one, I'm going to lower this thing down so that, and I'm going to back it up so that my tips, the spatters are going to kind of fall onto that, so you've got to move it back just a little bit away from your X, like not right over the top. And then you can spatter exactly where you want to. X marks the spot. Look at all those spatters right on that little X. And to show you the scale, that's my pencil eraser, and with this great big Mondo brush, we managed to get those spatters right where we wanted them. Okay, you've got to have thin, liquidy paint, but here's here's what we're going to use this for. Okay, I want to start leading my eye around my piece using spatters. Okay, so I want these bright green spatters right here on the tip of this. And I want to walk them out. Okay, so I can put spatters exactly where I want them. I don't have a big mess of spatters. I have one or two. That's okay, but I do have my concentration of spatters is right where I wanted it. Okay, I want maybe a couple on my leaf. There we go. And I love that look where they're just popping off the ends. So I would go through the piece and yeah, love it. Love it, love it, love it. At the ends of our leaves, then we add these little spatter pieces. And maybe they could come off. And so notice that I'm not going okay, let's do this. Be careful, your spatters will stay wet. I'm not going tap, 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 tap. I'm going one sharp tap. And that's what gets you the effect. You do not want to go, tap, 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 tap. Oh, and if you want to do a trajectory, this is important. If you want to do a trajectory where you have like spatters that go in a row, then you just march that out and you shove your brush in that angle as you're going, okay? And then they'll go boom, boom, like that. I had maybe just a little too much juice right there. However, that would be pretty in the right effect. Okay, so we are going to spatter the green on our leaves and the other colors on our grapes and use them to carry our color. We don't want a bunch of bright stuff out here in the middle. And then we're going to do our last step, which is our purples. Okay, the other thing that I'm noticing is that if I do light taps, I get little spatters. If I'm doing harder taps, I get harder spatters. If I do it really hard, I get squiggles. So paying attention to, this is really kind of a little science I've got going on here. Pay attention to how much pressure you're using and how hard you're pushing the brush. Okay, so we're going to do the blue for, I like these little wells. I'm getting just a washy kind of color in my brush. Okay, so up here, some blues. Remember, the higher up my brush goes, the higher the wider the spread of the, watch out for any errant water drops. Okay, good, love it. Love it, love it, love it. Then I think maybe a little bit of this purple out there in the skyland. I guess that's a blue. You know what I mean. Okay, and so then, let's see, we need, I've got to finish my letters, but we do need to finish the, this purple in here to be able to spread that purple around. I'm going to let my dots dry though first. Okay, so our dots are finally dry. So here's what we're going to do. We are going to take this big Mondo stencil brush. It's domed this way and domed this way. It is not your grandmother's stencil brush. And we need to go back into our purple color, okay, which is going to be way too much. Scrape that off. And then we take a dry paper towel with dry paint. We don't have a wet brush, it's a dry brush. Completely dry. Okay, and we wipe off all that color. And then when we put it onto our piece, it should be misty like that, where you can't see an obvious stop and start marker to it. Okay? Like so you could see it. Okay? So that is what we're after. We want to sneak up on this thing. We don't want to just, say, hey, hi, I'm purple. Ooh, that's a lot. We can sneak some down here, wherever we think we need some. Break that up. Once we get purple on there, we could decide that we need maybe a little bit more of a lighter color. So we could go into the next purpley color that we have. Okay. That red violet-y purple. Put some of that in there. It's not showing up. I'm going to go into a little bit of the different purples on my palette. See if I can't get this to show up. Yeah, that's a little better. You could glaze on to some of your vines and things. If you wanted to, I could go onto this whole side of my grapes and just give them a little rub, and suddenly, hi-ya, they are glazed. Okay, and we could go on to some of our leaves, the same effect, make them sink into the background just a little bit. Okay. Anyway, and so now I've got to lighten this up just a little bit. So I put some of that lightest purple onto my paper towel, and then that's really going to start showing, so I want to be real careful. Here and there. This won't work as a glaze when you're doing it this way, because if you try to glaze this onto those, it's got too much light color in it, and that will make it be chalky. So maybe we want just a little bit more of that light color, and maybe we want this to be a little scratchy. Like almost like a crisscrossy hi-ya. Okay, I want to be careful. I think I'm getting away from myself here. Okay, but if it was too much, then I could go back and I could glaze it in. Okay. Get some down here. Now I see, I'm not quite done, but I spy that I don't like the color of this border as I look at the whole piece. Is interesting and okay. It's not a bad color, but I think I want to add a step, which is to float a little bit more into, let's see, what color is it? It's eggplant. My mix of eggplant, and I'm going to float this right around my edge there. I want to just make that color just perk up just a little bit, and I'm going to get you in close so you can see it. Okay, see how that just warms that whole bottom of that up? That's just a little dusty. That's a little bit more solid, so I like that a little bit better. Okay. Our final steps are going to be to varnish, and the varnish that I recommend for this is going to be an exterior varnish or a really tough varnish. My favorite varnish, there's two steps that I would take. Actually, there's three steps I would take to finish this. I'm going to switch over to my other piece, make sure there's nothing wet on there, because this one's the one that's actually painted on both sides. Okay, so this one's all done, but if you can hear, now listen real close. Can you hear that? That is how rough, because I rolled on my varnish, that's how rough that is. And that it doesn't feel quality. It looks quality. I think it's a gorgeous piece, but it doesn't feel quality. So I'm going to pause for a minute and show you. The first thing that we're going to do, we're going to smooth this out with the super film. First thing we're going to do is apply varnish. We're going to apply 5 coats of varnish. So you would dip in to varnish and just simply wipe it on with your varnish sponge. You can base coat with these as well, but they don't give you 2. Okay, now that I've got, say, 5 coats of varnish on that, you can just wash this out with water and it's all good to go. I'm going to dip my super film into water, and with gentle pressure, if you start seeing color, it's time to stop because you don't have enough varnish. Stop and then reapply. With gentle pressure, you see where I'm varnishing, where I'm doing this is right on the Pinot Gris. Now I'm going to take this and wipe off. You can use a damp cloth. Okay, and now I only spent that little bit of time. Let me dry my hands off. Listen. Okay, and let's find. You hear how much quieter that is. Then what you'll do is you'll apply a final coat of varnish on here, and then to further protect it completely, then what you'll do is you'll get out your food safe salad bowl wax, and for two reasons you'll do this. The first reason is that you want a hard finish that will resist water and everything else. And I tell you, this stuff resists water. So after you get that varnished, one coat of varnish, you're going to wax it, and you're just going to apply that on in a nice buffing fashion. You're going to let it dry a day or so, and then you are going to buff it, okay? And it'll be wet right now, so it won't do me any good. But buffing it will just simply be with a dry paper towel, okay, until you get it to a nice sheen, a nice even sheen. And you are going to have the nicest finish that you've ever seen in your life. And listen, listen. Nothing. So, and this really is quite rough. I've done other areas of this here. Listen to this one. That has been super filmed. I can just walk around this, and this is totally tough. But that just makes a much more elegant finish on this. The food safe is what you can use on all of your pieces that might come in contact with food. You don't want people grabbing stuff off of here, putting it in their mouth. That's going to make it perfectly safe and ultra, ultra fine. I hope that you've enjoyed painting our Lazy Susan, and now it is time to turn it over and paint on the backside.